The Lost Ark of the Covenant revealed. Where is it now in 2026? There are some losses that feel bigger than history. You can read about them in books, trace them on maps, argue over them in documentaries, and still feel a quiet ache in the center of the story. The Ark of the Covenant is one of those losses. Not just because it was a sacred object, but because it carried a promise that God was near, that guidance was real, that mercy could be found between the cherubim, in the place where fear and hope meet. When something like that disappears, the human heart does what it always does. It starts searching. It starts asking, where did it go? Who took it? Is it hidden? Is it gone forever? And under those questions, another one whispers, if the holiest thing could be lost, what does that mean for me, for my faith, for the world I'm trying to trust? The Ark's trail fades in the same way many tragedies do, not with a clean ending, but with a silence. In the Hebrew Bible, the Ark is central for generations, carried through wilderness, into battles, and finally into the temple. Then, as Jerusalem moves toward catastrophe, the text stops giving us closure. One of the last clear biblical references places the Ark in the days of King Josiah, when the Levites are told to set it in the temple and no longer carry it on their shoulders. After that, the story turns dark. Babylon comes. The city falls. The temple is destroyed. And the list of treasures taken into exile does not clearly, unmistakably name the Arkansas. That omission is like an empty space in a family photo. Some take it as proof the Ark was already gone. Others take it as proof it was hidden too well to be recorded. Either way, we are left with a holy absence, and an invitation for legend, tradition, and longing to rush in and fill the gap. From that gap, several paths branch out. One path leads to the ruins and bedrock of Jerusalem itself. Another runs east toward the highlands of Jordan. Another stretches south, across deserts and seas, toward Ethiopia. And each path carries its own kind of hope, the hope of archaeology, the hope of prophecy, the hope of living tradition. But before we follow those roads, it helps to name something gently and honestly. No one today can point to a publicly verified Ark and say, with evidence accepted across the scholarly world, this is it. What we have are claims, texts, memories, and guarded holy spaces. That doesn't make the search meaningless. It just means we're walking into a story where certainty is rare, and reverence matters. The Temple Mount theory is the one many people feel in their bones, because it keeps the Ark close to where it last belonged. Jewish tradition contains multiple ideas about what happened. One famous stream suggests the Ark was hidden before the Babylonian destruction, concealed in underground chambers or passages beneath the temple, prepared for a day of return. Some rabbinic discussions imagine priests noticing something off about a stone in a storage chamber, hinting at a hidden space. Other traditions hold that Solomon himself designed areas beneath the temple for safeguarding sacred items in an emergency. The reason this theory keeps returning is simple: it fits a practical instinct. If danger is coming, you hide what is holy in the place that was built for holiness. But the same reason the idea endures is also why it remains untested. The Temple Mount is one of the most sensitive religious and political sites on earth. Excavations are limited, contested, and often impossible. So the theory lives in a tense space, plausible enough to imagine, sacred enough to respect, and restricted enough to remain out of reach. Another path of tradition comes from a text outside the Hebrew Bible but cherished in parts of Jewish and Christian history. 2 Maccabees. It tells the story of Jeremiah taking the Ark, along with other sacred items, and hiding them in a cave on Mount Nebo, the mountain associated with Moses' final view of the Promised Land. In this telling, the hiding place is intentionally sealed from human access until the time of God's mercy and restoration. People love this account because it doesn't just say the Ark is missing, it says the Ark is waiting. It frames absence as protection, not defeat. Still, historians will remind us that this is a later text describing earlier events, and it reads like sacred memory more than an inventory report. It can't be confirmed by archaeology, and Mount Nebo has been explored in various ways without producing anything that convinces the world. Yet the story persists because it speaks to a pattern God's people recognize. What is most precious is sometimes kept out of sight, not to be lost, but to be preserved. Then there is the path that many find the most vivid, because it isn't only a theory. It is a living claim held by a living church, the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church's tradition that the Ark resides in Aksum, at the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. According to Ethiopian sacred history, the Ark came to Ethiopia long ago, connected to the story of Menelik I and the Solomonic line. In Aksum today, the claim is not treated like a museum exhibit or a tourist attraction. It is treated like a guarded flame. The Ark is said to be kept in a chapel, and only one appointed guardian monk may see it. No press conference. No academic inspection. No photographs. Just devotion, prayer, and protection. This is partly why the claim is so powerful. It does not try to satisfy modern curiosity. It demands reverence. It says, in effect, some things are too holy to prove on command. But that same guarded devotion is also why the wider world remains unconvinced. Without independent examination, scholars can't verify what is inside that chapel. And there is at least one notable modern voice of skepticism. Edward Ullendorf, a scholar of Ethiopian studies, said he saw an object claimed to be the Ark in the 1940s and believed it was a later construction and empty. His statement doesn't settle the question either way, but it shows the tension clearly. Ethiopia's tradition offers continuity and faith. Scholarship asks for access and evidence. The two are not enemies, but they speak different languages. One says, "Believe with us." The other says, "Show us." And in the middle, the Ark remains, hidden, claimed, and unconfirmed. A related detail deepens the Ethiopia conversation and can confuse people if it isn't held carefully. In Ethiopian Orthodox practice, every church has a tabot, a sacred tablet that represents the tablets of the law and is treated with immense reverence. In a sense, the tablet is a doorway into the Ark's meaning, even if it is not the Ark itself. Modern news has even highlighted how sacred tablets taken during colonial campaigns have become the focus of restitution efforts, precisely because they are not mere artifacts to be displayed. They are holy objects to be honored. When you see that level of reverence carried into public life, it helps you understand why Ethiopia guards its claim the way it does, not as a stunt, but as worship. So where does that leave us, if we're trying to be honest? We end up with three strong clusters of belief and possibility, and each one carries a different kind of weight. Jerusalem beneath the Temple Mount carries the weight of geographic logic and sacred continuity, but it is locked behind modern realities and an ancient silence. Mount Nebo carries the weight of prophetic storytelling and the theme of hidden mercy, but it remains beyond confirmation. Aksum carries the weight of a living tradition that refuses to turn holiness into spectacle, but it cannot be tested by modern standards without violating what its guardians believe is required. And maybe that's the point that hurts and heals at the same time. The Ark is a symbol of God's presence, but God's presence was never meant to be reduced to an object. Even in Scripture, the danger was always that people would cling to the vessel and forget the voice. There were moments when Israel treated the Ark like a guarantee, as if carrying it automatically meant winning, as if holiness could be used like a tool. And the Bible's larger story keeps correcting that mistake with tenderness and severity. The living God cannot be contained. The living God cannot be controlled. Heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. The Ark was a gift, a sign, a mercy seat. But it was never the source. Still, it's okay to feel the longing. It's okay to want to know. Because the desire to find the Ark is often a desire to find reassurance that God acted in history, that holiness is real, that the past is not a myth, that the world has a center. When you sit with that desire, you start to realize the search is not only about a gold-covered chest. It's about a human heart that wants to believe it hasn't been abandoned. It's about the ache behind the question, where is it now? It's about the deeper question, where is God now? And this is where faith quietly steps in, not to scold curiosity, but to steady it. Faith says you can honor history without worshipping certainty. You can study the texts, respect the traditions, and still accept that some doors remain closed. Faith says even if the Ark were found tomorrow, it would not replace what God is already doing in the secret places of repentance, forgiveness, and renewal. Faith says the same God who once met his people in a sanctuary can meet you in your bedroom, your bus ride, your hospital hallway, your empty afternoon. I will never leave you nor forsake you. The Ark might be hidden from human eyes, but mercy is not hidden from a humble heart. So let the mystery soften you rather than harden you. Let it remind you that holiness is not something we possess, it is something we approach. Let it teach you to hold sacred things with clean hands and an unclenched grip. If the Ark is under the Temple Mount, may God guard it. If it is in a cave on Nebo, may God keep it. If it is in Aksum, may God honor the devotion that surrounds it. And if it is nowhere we can reach, may God still reach us. Let me offer a prayer in the middle of the unknown. God of covenant and compassion, you know what was carried, what was hidden, what was lost, and what was preserved. You see every sealed chamber and every guarded chapel. You know the truth without needing to prove it. If the Ark still rests somewhere on this earth, let it remain under your protection and for your purposes alone. But more than that, Lord, let your presence rest on the hearts that are searching. Heal the anxious need to control. Quiet the fear that faith depends on finding. Teach us to love truth without demanding it on our terms. Teach us to honor mystery without drifting into fantasy. Give us wisdom, humility, and peace. And for the one listening who feels like something holy has gone missing in their own life, God, meet them gently. Where they feel empty, fill them with steady love. Where they feel ashamed, cover them with mercy. Where they feel lost, guide them with your light. Let them hear you whisper, "Be still, and know that I am God." Not as a command, but as an invitation to rest. In the end, the Ark's location may remain a question mark, and history may keep its secrets. But you do not have to live in spiritual suspense. The story of God does not depend on what we can unearth. It depends on what He has already revealed, that He is faithful, that He keeps covenant, that He draws near to the brokenhearted, that He makes a way in the wilderness. The true lost Ark we need found is often the surrendered heart, rediscovered in the presence of God. So breathe. Let the mystery be what it is. Let history be studied with respect. Let sacred traditions be held with honor. And let your soul come home to this simple peace: God is not missing. God is not hiding from you. Even when the holiest artifacts disappear from view, the Holy One remains. And His presence, unlike gold and stone, cannot be stolen, buried, or sealed away.